All right, so here's the basic functions of the buttons on the Kestrel. So we're just gonna go through that real quick. The top left button, think of this as like your menu and your back button. The red button there is gonna be your capture button. So when we go to do direction capture or your wind capture, that's the button we're talking about. This is your light button. So if you need the backlight to come on, you just push that and that brings it up. Also, it's a quick link to weather. So if you just double click that, it'll take you to the last screen you left off on weather. So if you wanted to leave off on wind, a lot of people will go here and then double click that button to go back and forth from ballistics to wind so you can measure wind speed. And the next thing is going to be your directional keypad. Just think of that as like any other directional, up, down, left, right, navigating through the system. You'll notice like if we go down to weather, where it says environment, if I scroll over, it'll go to lock, and then if I scroll over again, it'll go to live. So those buttons are going to be used for a lot of different things inside the Kestrel. Next is your center button. Just think of that as any other enter button, so that just means enter. So if I want to go into the screen, I hit enter, and it's going to take me into the environment screen. And then remember, we said this one was like a back button. So if we hit that, it's going to take us back to our ballistic screen. Bottom left button, you've obviously figured this out at this point. If it's on, that's your power button. In order to turn it off, just hold that down, it'll turn it off. Lastly, we talked about the serial number being on the back, and then to change the battery right here on the bottom, you just slide this over, and it's going to open up the battery door, and you'll notice it has a lithium battery in it. Make sure to use lithium batteries. They don't leak and they last a lot longer, and you won't have any issues with your Kestrel by using lithium batteries. That is your basic functions and how the buttons and all work. Next, we're going to get into making sure that now that we've got a profile loaded, that all the settings are correct in the Kestrel. So the first thing we're going to do is just start right here and make sure that it says yards. If it doesn't, we're going to hit enter. And then right here where it says target range, we're going to hit enter. And then right here where it says units, we're going to scroll over either to meters or yards based on what you are using. A lot of the military guys are using meters and most civilian guys are using yards. Doesn't really matter, just pick the one that you want, and then you can hit exit, exit, and it'll take you back to the main screen. The next thing, checking to make sure all our settings are correct. If we go down to gun, hit enter. And then just make sure this says feet per second. If you were in Europe, a lot of those guys are using meters per second. So if you wanted to change that, you just go here and scroll over to meters per second. All right, so if we hit exit, exit, that would take us back to the main screen. Make sure the muzzle velocity is what you think it is. If we need to change that a little bit, we can just scroll right or left. So let's say that we'd been running 2820 and for whatever reason, our muzzle velocity sped up a little bit. We can just scroll over to 2825 there, whatever the number is, and it'll save it. You don't have to keep this connected to the phone. So, matter of fact, I recommend turning the Bluetooth off so that you can't have anybody accidentally connect to it. Next, drag model, we picked G7. We want to make sure the ballistic coefficient looks right. So a 105 target hybrid is recommended for a .273. You may find you need to go up or down a little bit based on your rifle and your barrel and your lot of bullets. Next, we've got bullet weight and then bore diameter. One thing that you'll want to check if you click on bore diameter, go down to bullet length. If you're hand loading, measure your lot of bullets and put that bullet length in there. It'll really help with making sure our aerodynamic jump is correct. Also, if we hit enter here, you'll see auto calc is turned on. We want to turn that off. This is just like a basic calculation saying if the bullet is this weight and this bore diameter, it must be this long. We don't want it to auto calculate that. We want to actually measure it and put it in. So go ahead and measure your bullet length, and that's just from the back of the projectile to the tip of the projectile, and put that in here. All right, exit. Now we're going to go down. Zero range, 100 yards. It doesn't have to be perfectly 100, guys. So like if this thing is, say you range the berm and it's at 98, it's not going to make any difference. You just need to put 98 yards in the Kestrel. If it's 102, just put 102 in the Kestrel. Like I've seen guys try to move them forward and back and try to get that perfect 100-yard zero. It just doesn't matter. Next is your bore height. We measured that and we talked about it when we did the app. And then we're just going through and verifying that all this is right. Now, in the Kestrel, if we wanted to do a tall target test where it says elevation unit, you can click right there, go down to where it says elevation site scale factor, click on it, and then it'll walk you through a tall target test. So 100 yards, you dialed up 10 mils, your impact should be 36 inches high. If it's not, you would just manipulate this to say, okay, it's 36 1/4, and it would give you a site scale factor of 0.994. I'm gonna go back to 36, so this should say 1.0, but this is just gonna help you out if your scope's not tracking perfectly. It'll allow you to put in that rich or lean condition for your clicks. You can do the same thing for windage, and then Cal DSF is only used for anything past the transonic into the subsonic, so we're only using that to do subsonic stuff. So if you shoot a mile, you can go in here and you can set up, your mile target and tell it what you needed to shoot a mile, and it'll help you to get that curve bent to an exact situation where you'll be able to more reliably hit in the subsonic portion of the flight, which means it's already went supersonic coming out of the barrel. Transonic means it's coming back into this below the speed of sound, and then subsonic is when it's below the speed of sound. Bullets do a lot of weird stuff in that transitionary period. So this allows you to improve your chances of hitting it at those longer distances, okay? So we'll hit exit there. And then just to make sure we didn't do anything silly, we're gonna go into view. And if you don't have anything in the DSF section, there should be all zeros on the left and all ones on the right. And then obviously we don't want to delete guns. So we'll hit exit here, and then environment, that's where we need to go over to live, and we'll just spin it like this. And we usually do that for, 10 seconds or so. And then I will look at the temperature, and then when it stabilizes, you'll notice right here it stabilized at 62, and we can go ahead and go back to lock. The reason I run it on lock is because your hand temperature, if you keep it in your pocket or if it's out in a sunny day and the hot sun is heating this thing up, you don't want it to get heat soaked or cold or whatever. We want it acclimated to current ambient temperatures. So if we are using it for that current condition, we'll spin it, get that current ambient condition, and then we'll lock it so that it's not sucking heat out of our hand or building up heat from the sun. So one of the things we're going to want to update is your latitude. Now there's two ways of doing it. You can look at, here, let me pull my phone in here real quick. Okay, so when we go to the home screen here, if we connect the device, when we're in environment here, we need to update the latitude. Now you're going to do that once for that setting. So like if you're at a range, say in Oklahoma, it's going to be the latitude for Oklahoma. If you're at a range in New York, it's going to be that latitude for New York. So it's not going to change throughout the day. It's based on your location, and the Kestrel has no idea where you're at. So you have to tell it where on the map you are as far as latitude. So there's a couple ways of doing it. The easy way of doing it is if you click on Update Kestrel Latitude once your device is connected, and you'll see updating to 37, and it updated to 37 there. Now, let's say for whatever reason you don't have your phone, you can look at a map or you can ask somebody else to do this. So this is a pretty easy way of doing it. On an iPhone, you can click on compass, and you'll notice at the bottom right here, it gives you the latitude. So it's at 37 degrees, and we would just put that right into 37 degrees. So that's how we're gonna update latitude, either by using the Kestrel app or finding out the latitude. One easy way to do it on an iPhone is the compass. All of your environmental stuff is going to automatically update as long as you go over to live. And then in environment, when we go down, we want to make sure that spin drift and aerodynamic jump are turned on. I know that some instructors are teaching to turn that off and manage that manually, but here's what I'm going to tell you. All the PRS guys are using aerodynamic jump and spin drift on. There's some ways that we can get aerodynamic jump a little bit more accurate, but for right now, I recommend, especially if you're just starting out, go ahead and turn them on. It's going to give you a much better solution than if you've got it turned off. The only other thing that you're going to need at the house when we're first building this is if you go down to manage guns and you just want to turn off any guns that you're not currently using. What this is going to do is keep you from accidentally picking a gun that you don't need. So if we go up to the top here and we're on gun and we just scroll over, it's just going to go from gun to new gun. So Everybody I know that's done this for a long time has accidentally went up there with the wrong gun loaded in the Kestrel. So by turning all these off, except for the one you're planning on using, you're going to mitigate that problem and you won't have the issue of having the wrong dope. What I always do to have a couple little checks, if I go to wind, and you'll notice it says wind 12 o'clock, 1 mile an hour. What I want to do is just go in here and zero this out. So you'll see now it says wind none. And if I go to 100 yards, which is my zero range, you'll notice it says 0 elevation and 0 windage. That's a good check to make sure I put everything in correctly. My 100-yard 0 is good and I don't have anything weird. Another thing that I usually do is I'll put in my 500-yard dope. Remember I said if you remember your 500-yard data, it'll help you out because you can always know basically what your elevation should be at a bunch of different ranges. And I'll just make sure that this is what I expect it to be. So I typically shoot a 6.5. This is 6 millimeter. Remember I said mine was 2.7. This one's 2.6. A general rule of thumb here is if it's basic rounding, 5 or more, let it soar. So this says 2.56. You're just going to round that up to 2.6. All right, so we'll remember my 500-yard dope for this particular gun, 2.6. And then if I go out and shoot and it's something different, we'll have to do some diagnostics to figure out why. Okay, so that completes the Kestrel setup video. And then we're going to get into how to use the Kestrel in the next video.